Roses are red, wormholes are blue, new stars are born when I'm around you. I've been watching an old TV series called Farscape, and I've been laughing. It's been very good for me, I think, to laugh. And I don't know exactly what to make of it. I wasn't following it when it was being produced. I can't say that I wasn't aware of it. I heard about this project that was going on that was involving things that were suspiciously similar to the interests that I had. And several of the people I had come into contact with were hired by Hallmark. And it's interesting to see these stories that I was telling back then sort of fictionalized and amplified in such an interesting way. I think a lot of people think that astrotometry is actually based on these sorts of undocumented experiments that I was involved with. And the truth is actually much stranger. People who know me longer know that I was theorizing about astrotometry long before I engaged that sort of flow, experienced that sort of thing. And even that, a lot of people don't understand, don't know, wasn't what it appeared, wasn't what it seemed to be. It's sort of a problematic thing in my life right now that friends and family don't know the details and the extent of the experimentation that I was involved with. They have one story, and there's a lot of it that's still very much hidden, arguably for good reason. But it's been a problem in my life because people tend to not realize that I wasn't the only one experimenting, and that it wasn't just Lucy in the sky at work. There were a lot of other forces, a lot of other factors, factions at work that to this day remain hidden. And I think Lucy's sort of taken the blame. And as astrotometry has become clearly a new science, and as I now have ways to demonstrate it both mathematically and empirically, the people to whom I told those stories, a lot of people who have been attending these interests and following my work, I think believed that I was going to start retelling these stories on YouTube. And to this day, I've been sort of quiet about that. And it's not what I really came to YouTube to talk about. But it is something I wanted to convey to certain people that I think need to know. And unfortunately, I don't believe that Farscape would actually accurately represent. One of my friends who went to work for Hallmark came and asked about my experiences and offered one of the jackets that John Crichton wears. And I'm feeling kind of bad about that now because I really sort of blew it off, because I was like, you can't wear this around. It's not practical, and it didn't even really, it was like really tight, didn't button very well. And so I don't even know what happened to it, but it's kind of sad now that seeing what they did and what they were doing, sort of that I was unaware of. So here's our friend here. I don't know what his ordeal is, but he keeps flying over. I guess it could be that he just thought that maybe the wormholes were following me around and wanted to get a lift. Who knows? But yeah, they lampooned me, it looks like, And I don't know exactly how to feel about it. I've only seen about 8 of the episodes so far, and I am probably going to watch the whole series just because it seems to be fairly well researched. And I don't know exactly all the details. Hallmark bought Sunrise, the company that I was doing the website for, and I built a state-of-the-art website for them back in the late 90s. And I left the company to do my own work, and my partner stayed on. They had him sign a contract to stay when they purchased the company. And also my former manager, who was his manager from a different job, also signed a contract to stay with Hallmark. I was working on stuff that was very much in a similar vein, but a little more adult. I needed to maintain my independence, and so the money that I was getting from my research, for funding my research and for being able to have the independence that I had, was coming from very, very low quality, low budget productions that were more erotic in nature. And so there was this sort of competition that was going on, in a sense, in the media realm between the internet and TV, as an effort to sort of reclaim the television market. That's part of the push that was behind the show. And having been someone who was raised by a television set, to suddenly stop watching TV and start producing and paying attention to other things that were going on around was a shocking thing to see from people who were in my life. The challenges that I was facing from the details that I unraveled about the nature of the world, which I'm still struggling to explain. These people were thinking I was crazy. These people were thinking, this guy's out of his mind, because of some of the things that I was saying. And I stopped saying them because of things like Farscape, because these stories started leaking out and people started getting together behind my back and intervening and doing all kinds of things that are not necessarily in the greater interest, because they bury what is true. The discoveries I've made with astrophotometry are going to change the entire world for hundreds of years into the future. And so these things aren't going away. And now that this is sort of becoming present, obvious in the minds of these people who were sort of almost ridiculing me in the past, it's changing the game. It's changing the situation. And so I don't know, as far as the future of Farscape. When I moved to San Francisco in 2003, the John Crichton character was transferred to the Stargate show, which I think is kind of funny. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to if they're going to continue either of those series. I don't know what they're going to do there. I suspect they're looking for more material. I'm a little bit put off that I wasn't consulted a little more directly. It's a little bit creepy to have this sort of shadow thing going on around you, but it's sort of been the story of my life for a while. I don't know how long, actually, because I don't know the depth of the sort of differences that I have with my fellow humans. And in the show, John Crichton is the only human, and in my life, I'm the only sort of non-human. I'm the different one. I'm the one that is standing out in the alien world. And so the juxtapositions in that show are very interesting. My former boss at the DSL, he used to say that I reminded him of the character from the Prisoner series, which I've never seen either, because it always seemed like I was constantly feeling like I was uncomfortable, and people don't understand that my worldview is completely different. I don't live on a planet. I don't live on a round world that's going around the sun. That's not my world. It hasn't been my world for many, many years. And so the way that I move through time and space is consciously different than the way that my contemporaries move through time and space. And this is very disturbing from the standpoint of our society and its notions about the nature of time and space. And so, as I've sorted out the details with astrophotometry, the proof is in the pudding. And so there are a lot of frontiers to be explored here. This is a brand new frontier. You can compare it to Columbus sailing around the world and finding out that that the world could be circumnavigated. That's an illusion, because in the time it takes you to come back around to a different place, where you left has changed. And depending on what happens to you between the time you leave and the time you get back, those changes are not just dependent on time. Those changes are dependent on where you go in the meantime. And so there is a connection between the choices that you make in the moment and the movement that everything else in the universe is experiencing. And this is what I call hypersymmetry. It's the hypersymmetric model. It's the way you have to think about the nature of the universe in order to work with either static multiple worlds or a morphogenic world. There's either many worlds that can be navigated between, or there is one world that is morphogenic depending on how you're moving through time-space. Either way, people have asked about whether I believe that the sun and the moon and the stars are actually up there. Well, that's an irrelevant question in astrophotometry as far as the current dogma, as far as the current thinking in astrophotometry. That is irrelevant, because whether or not they're actually physically there, what they appear as in our three-dimensional perception can be used mathematically to reformulate the higher dimensional navigation parameters. And this is where astrophotometry has everything to do with the nature of consciousness and the nature of the relationship between the sun and the earth. Because in astrophotometry, technically the sun is not a three-dimensional object. The sun in astrophotometry technically contains the earth and appears to us as this three-dimensional fire because of the nature of light and its relationship with matter. And that I've been able to articulate this is, in a sense, the big prize here. This is, in a sense, the big pay dirt scientifically for resolving the riddles between the geocentric, the heliocentric, the holographic, and the electric universe models. It comes together when you understand the underlying nature of light.